What's up, Cachorro? It's back for another X-Men 97 recap. This time, episode 4, which they did something a little different this time. They did 2 stories in one episode. Well, they've done that before, but they kind of broke it into 2 episodes. Which I don't, with 2 different names. Which I don't think they've done that before. I know there was a series where they used to have, at the end of the episodes, like a little 2-minute Xavier and Magneto in the Savage Land thing. I don't recall that being considered its own episode where they like give it its own title or something like that. I could be wrong though about that, but this one is clearly was definitely broken into 2 episodes. Let's go to this instead. There's Motendo and Life Death Part 1 or the 2 titles. One obviously one is definitely hinting at one something in particular, and the other one is a famous comic book storyline from the X-Men from the 80s, in the mid 80s, pretty much. Compared to the other 3 episodes, it's in the running with the very first episode on where it stands. They said it wasn't as strong as episodes 2 or 3, but it was still pretty good. I still enjoyed it. There's some really cool visual effects and I give them kudos for what they did in the second part, which we'll cover that in a little bit here as well. But like I said, this is one of the probably as strong as Inferno, as the Inferno episode, or what was episode 2? By the Friends of You. The Trial of Magneto. That's what I was. I couldn't think of the second episode for a minute there. So yeah, definitely the Trial of Magneto and the Inferno episodes are stellar episodes. It's gonna be hard to top those. The rest of the season's got a lot to live up. Has to do a lot to even overcome those. Those 2 episodes are really, really good. So like I said, it's on par with the first episode, where the first episode was kind of doing that reintroduction stuff with and refamiliarizing people with the X-Men and new audience and stuff that might not know them. So, but I still really enjoyed these episodes. So we'll start with our opening montage, which I don't know why this close got a picture of Jean. I don't think that was any. Obviously, Bishop was removed since he left at the end of the episode. But we did get some other glimpses. We had this scene of Jubilee with Longshot fighting Mojo. I'd have to go back because I don't know. I don't remember. I guess Mojo's probably showed up for more than a couple of different episodes. This must have been later towards the end, maybe the last season they brought him back in for something. So this might have been from that. Because I don't remember Jubilee being part of the initial Mojo episode. So I don't remember that episode per se. We got a scene, a little scroll through of X Factor with Wolverine standing there. I'm assuming that had to be a shot from the X Factor. I mean, X Factor only showed up, I believe, in the 1 episode, so I guess that was a shot from that. And then we have a scene of Charles losing his powers and Emma Frost blocking him. That didn't come into play at all in this episode, so I have no idea where that one's going. If that was just the one with Leandra too. I guess they're kind of giving you hints of Charles still being out there somewhere. But those were our new shots. So episode opens on coffee, and we got to play up the little jealousy angle. So it starts with Gambit trying to offer Rogue some coffee, offering her something, and she's like, "Oh, the boss man's already taken care of it." And Uses magnet powers and drops the 3 sugars, I believe is how you like it. Continuing on that, keeping that jealousy of Gambit alive, and the boss is like macking on your girl, bro. Poor Gambit. The boss is macking on your woman. So his plans are to... So Magneto wants everyone to go to the danger room and train hard because they want to be ready for when Sinister when he returns. Where a couple people then point out, it's like, it's Jubilee's 18th birthday. Don't you think we should kind of like let her celebrate her birthday? Well, she can celebrate more birthdays if she becomes able to control her powers. So it's coming off really like mine really remembers like the old school Xavier in the comics where Xavier's like super strict. And we get the Morph makes a joke about Magneto's parents. To which Magneto's like, my parents died when I was a boy. And so another one of Morph's off. So he's pretty much really used to do a lot of off-put jokes. I mean, he's got some real zingers he's nailed, but he's had a lot of off-put jokes that have kind of like bombed on him. So we get another one of those. Jubilee then enters all like super pumped because it's her 18th birthday. And Rogue's like, we got a lot of surprises for you, Shug. So what would you like to do? And she's like, well, Jubilee fast. She's like, hey, let's go to the arcade, like old times. You just see Magneto go. No one says Magneto has to go. So then we cut to her and Roberto are in her room, and she's fuming because Magneto, I guess, shot it down and wants them to train. So she goes on a rant about it's her 18th birthday. She's mad at Cyclops and Jean. I guess maybe a couple of some other guys are off at the UN dealing with the Genosha being invited to the UN stuff. Kind of think everything that. And Roberto keeps getting on her about playing video games. Like, that's unattractive. Video games are not attractive. Dude, I'm in my 40s. I'd take a chick that I still play video games, and I'd love it if I had a girlfriend that plays video games. Roberto, what the hell's wrong with you? So he gets on about playing video games, and she sees this video game console that she don't know where it came from. She's not familiar with it at all. It's obviously it's very interesting because it's called a Motendo, but it's very similar to a Sega Genesis. You can see the X-Men cartridge with Apocalypse on it there. It's a very Sega Genesis controller too. But to go to turn on because they think it was a birthday so she thinks it's a birthday present, so she goes to turn on. I guess 1997 would be the Sega Genesis era. Right at the birth, of course, the birth of PlayStation 1. Because PlayStation 1 might have been out by then. Turn on, all of a sudden a bunch of tentacles come up and wrap around them and start putting them into like a induced coma thing, kind of like zone state where it can suck them into their consciousness into the game. So first is they wake up, they on the bed, trying to figure out what happened. They're saying, you hear footsteps and a sentinel busts through and grabs Roberto, and they fall through and they're in the middle of the city. Don't know how they got there. So you get attacked. They're getting attacked by some sentinels and some friends of humanity. Roberto is refusing to use his powers because he's afraid he might get seen, and he doesn't want his parents to know. So we're still dealing with him being afraid of his powers. Then they have this phone starts ringing. And they decide to answer it, and it teleports them out of there, a la Matrix style. They wake up in next thing you know they're in Genosha, and she remembers. So it's another moment from her past where she was in Genosha. We do get a little glimpse of Blob, Warpath. I think, or you don't see you see part of Warpath, Blob, Sunfire, and I think Copycat. I believe was the one chick's name. Kind of doing some stuff in the background. They get attacked by some goons that are just pretty much running a straight line and shooting, kind of very video game character style. All of a sudden, they get glitched out, and we see this mysterious figure that they can't talk to. Next thing we know, they figure out they're in a video game, and Mojo shows up. Good old Mojo just shows up and says that his ratings are down, so he's expanded into video games to suck on the brain waves of people. As you can see, he's obviously he feasts on people's brain waves and stuff like that. With the ratings and stuff like that. That is people watching Psychic Access or something like that. So the ratings are way down. So he's lost a lot of weight there because he's not getting any nutrition, I guess you could say. So he's going into video games to try and corner that market. So he mentions that the X-Men are kind of boring. There's a little clip showing who's the boss, joking about who's the boss, joking about Summers and Gray in divorce court, Summers versus Gray. Couple old TV kind of jokes of that. Mentions that he wants to build a game around a new star. Dazzler names drop as Dazzler as being busy. So we get the Dazzler name drop. So his goal is, build around Jubilee, and he's making her this big old pitch to be a video game star and live forever. So he kicks off X-Men: The Rise of Jubilee, and while this picture doesn't show it, there's a little 16-bit. It's got Magneto over the Earth and looks super retro. As you can see at the bottom, there's a scene where there was level 2 when they were fighting in the Savage Land, which we'll talk about that in a second. First level is them fighting Days of Future Past, and they're fighting the Sentinels. This looks so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. I don't even know what it looks like. It looks more that than it does the X-Men arcade game, which is hilarious. But so you get this great the visuals here. So you get a lot of 90s video game-ish looking visuals, 16-bit. So it's really cool art style. I really, really dig the art style. So we start with a character. There's a character select screen. Obviously, he picks these two characters, but the other characters on the scene there was looks like Colossus, Magic, and one on the end is kind of cut off, but it looked maybe like Cable. So while they're going through the missions, they get to a boss. They start fighting Sauron in the Savage Land level, and he starts zapping Jubilee's power energy. She's losing health. All of a sudden, something happens, and she gets all her health back, and Sauron turns back into a human and falls over. And there's someone glitching the system. We get a little spot. We get to see Spiral. So a couple of cameos of Spiral in the episode. So they get from what we could tell, the third level, which I don't know. Third level, which is Asteroid Elm. And it starts off with Roberto kind of talking about his family situation a little bit. And then he's still saying it's not real. None of this is real. All of a sudden he gets wiped out. And so he's on one hit point. He's about to die. And a very video game-ish Magneto shows up. And we get a Magneto boss battle. And she's even going through things. Well, every boss has a little cycle they run. They do a couple attacks and then they become vulnerable. So she shows her wait out his attacks to where he finally drops his shield, so she's able to attack him and take him out. And then goes over to Roberto, who's about to die, and all of a sudden this glowing X comes and it's an extra life, and she was able. So they have a little extra life, which was obviously given to him by the hacker person again. Magneto comes back to life, and then this portal opens, and a hand comes through and grabs him. And they are whisked to this I don't even know how to refer to this. So the hackers pulled them that's been helping them, pull them to this little secret area of the Matrix. I will call it that. I guess we can call it that. Maybe help out. Where Mojo doesn't know where they're at, so she can talk to them. So first they accuse her of being in on with Mojo, and we reveal that she is a older Jubilee, a gray-haired Jubilee, and that she was originally a clone, I guess you would call her. She was Mojo was testing things out, so he made some Roberto and Jubilee beta testers. So we get a lot of video game knowledge dropped here. So, and then she was the only one that was able. She found a way to escape the system before it got wiped. And she gives Jubilee a nice little speech about how she has to grow up a little bit and take things more maturely and seriously, and pretty much tell her video games are cool, but you gotta, the real world's important. And gives her the speech to kind of make her that she needs to take things more seriously and face blah blah blah. Don't remember most of the speech, but yeah, something like that. All of a sudden, Mojo breaks in. He's a giant Mojo breaks into the room and starts fighting them. Old Jubilee shows off some new power, shows off some new ways of using Jubilee's powers. Which she's like, "Hey, I can do that." Like, "Yeah, you can do that." So possibly this might lead to Jubilee having some more better useful powers, and just sparkles. Also during this fight, Roberto finally uses his powers to help out. So he's finally getting over his little clip. I mean, we don't get the full sunspot yet. So I guess that's going to be a big reveal at some point in the season. He just they should use the arm thing a little bit. They're able to nuke Mojo, take him down. They see him kind of get pushed over by Spiral, who looks like she's ready to take. We've seen this before where Spiral's ready to take over, wants to take over the show. Step up and take over his spot. So we get a hit to that. Next thing you know, they're back in Jubilee's room. And she brags about, "Roberto, your life was in danger, blah, 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 blah." And they have this big old kiss. And she starts kissing him, and all this lights start going off everywhere around her because, love. All I can say is, hey, we need a chaperone. We got these two kids making out in her bedroom. Rogue, time you knock on the door. Make sure the door's kept ajar. You know what I'm saying now? But that ended the Motendo episode. And then from there we go right into our next episode. Life Death Part 1, which is a famous comic book storyline involving a lot of the same things. So we start off, so there's Life Death. You see this owl thing flying. Then it goes to night over the cabin. You see possibly the same owl. You see an owl flying over the cabin a little bit. We see that Forge and Storm are having this dinner, and they're having this nice little conversation. He's going with his whole friend of Charles is a friend of mine. I don't recall Forge. I mean, he was obviously in the Bishop episodes in the future. But his first appearance was the X Factor episode. I don't recall Xavier knowing who he was at the time. So don't recall that. He did show back up in the Phalanx episodes, which I don't remember those ones that well, because that was like the last season. So I don't know if him and Xavier were supposed to know each other and showed up and knew each other in that episode or not. But somehow he's a friend of Charles from somewhere. So I don't know where that happened. And made some chili, and then there's talks about how he was a soldier in war, kind of hinting how it happened to his hand and leg, and how he used his abilities to overcome that. Talk about his mutant power being he can access other parts of his brain that most people don't have, conscious access of, I guess you could say. He talks about when to help Storm. And they decide to go on a horse ride. And he kind of challenges Storm, and she gets to the point where she starts trying to race him. And they come to an edge of a cliff, and they have that the classic, "Oh no, stop the horse before you fall off the cliff" thing. They talk about the view, and you look up, and you see the owl flying over again. And Storm mentions, "I've seen that same owl before multiple times. And she goes through this whole little scientific speech about weather patterns and how the wind only here blows from to the east and some nerdy dump stuff there. So from there, we go back to the camp. So we go back to the cabin. We give this glimpse of some pictures on Forge's wall, including obviously the full X Factor team here. So nice little throwback to them again. And talked about the horse ride, gave him the clarity he needed for the come up with the final calculations for the machine. So Storm goes in. They try it on her. Then we cut to her outside trying to see if she can control the wind. It fails. She's not able to get her power. She's all distraught. Then she comes in, sees Storm still working on a type of some kind of, looks like almost kind of like the inhibitor collar. He's still working on the machine. So she kind of starts questioning him on why is this so important to him? So, in the comic book storyline, Forge, for the government, creates a weapon that can take away mutant powers. Henry Gyrick is planning on using the weapon on the villain Rogue at the time. He goes to shoot Rogue. Storm takes the shot. And she loses her powers by that. And then she meets up with Forge. They fall in love. He start working. It's revealed that Forge created the weapon. He reveals that he created the weapon that took her powers. So that's why he's helping her, because he feels bad because it was his fault. So you get some of the same arguments here about the redemption and when to be redeemed and stuff like that. So in the show, we already know he didn't create the weapon. It was the executioner made it out of an inhibitor collar. So what it is he came up with the concept and the beginning workings of the inhibitor collar. Now, they said that he didn't create it. It was created by a scientist in Scotland, which is, I'm sure, the one that came up with. So I'm thinking they obviously had that because I think it wasn't meant. So I guess it's all hinting back to the doctor that Apocalypse was posing as, that was supposed to create the cure. So I think it maybe, I don't know if it was actually mentioned in the show somewhere that he created it. So I guess that maybe it was. So maybe they're keeping up with canon that way. So just saying, Forge came up with a lot of the beginning concept work on it, and then this other scientist was able to finish it. So this becomes a rift because and it's just like it did in the comics when that came out. She kind of turns on Forge, and she's, you're just using me for redemption. I'm a fool. And Forge's like, no, I really care for you. I love you, and I have feelings for you. She slaps him, and she goes to storm out. The next thing you know, you see her riding on a horse at night in the rain. All of a sudden, everything starts glowing red, and these giant red eyes come. She's thrown from the horse. She crashes through the ceiling. She lands back in the cabin. Forge rushes upstairs to see her. Like, I was just coming upstairs to come after you. She was out. You let her get pretty far there before you decided to come after her, Forge. And they're trying to say, well, how did I get back here? All of a sudden, you kind of start hearing owl noises. And this big claw thing grips the door, and this beast thing comes out on the corner. And Forge is just like, get out of here, you demon. And he bites Forge and affects Forge. And then grabs around Storm and says it feeds off of negative emotions, despair, stuff like that. So it wants to keep Storm there because it's feeding off of Storm's despair, anguish, sorrow, that kind of stuff. Refers to itself as the adversary. And grips her, and we fade to black, and that's when the episode ends for part 1. Kudos if you've read the story, the comic book storyline. There are demons and aliens involved, and Forge trying to stop aliens from invading the Earth. attack his penthouse. They have the falling out. She has the falling out with Forge. And a friend of Forge named Naze comes to get her because Forge went somehow. I don't remember some of this off the top of my head because it was bizarre. Forge is possessed, or he's like in some kind of kidnap state or something like that. So he's trying to have her go back to help Forge, even though she's angry. She hates his guts. Like I said, there's some fights with demons and all kinds of weird stuff. So they brought that in. They're keeping along. They've stuck with the demons. In the comics, it ended up being Baze was possessed by the adversary, and that's the adversary from the comics. And he came back later on, and they changed his look a little bit. Might have something there. There's some other glimpses of the adversary. So the story got really weird. Forge and Storm got put on a parallel Earth without humans, and the adversary is offering them to be the first humans to start a new human race. There was some other goddess thing that was trapped. The X-Men got involved, and it got weird. It got weird. So we'll see if this gets as weird. If they maybe keep it a little toned down or not, but like I said, I give them kudos. They this is a weird storyline. It has some weird story elements. It's obviously about Storm getting her powers back. It does that in the comics, but the story was definitely out there a little bit. We did also get Mystique's Freedom Force that was involved in the parts of the story at times, because they were hunting the X-Men that were led by the evil Magneto. Magneto that people didn't trust. So, yeah. Interesting to see where they go with this story. But as I said, it was so cool that they went. I thought to see where they were going to go. Inferno surprised me too because they went there with demons and shit in that one too. So kudos to them for that. The first part had really cool visuals, like the old video game visuals. They looked, definitely a good throwback. So it was still a good episode. Overall, I'm not sure what the next episode's called, but it's still banger, still doing good. So that's good to see. Still, definitely some of the best thing they've done recently. Until they do, I'm sure they'll do something that'll piss everybody off. Because the internet just gets pissed off about everything. But this episode is probably about 7.5. 7.5. Inferno was really, I really love that episode. So I don't know if I give it. I don't know if I was rating the episodes or not. The first episode that first came back, that was probably 7.5. The Trial of Magneto episode, that was 8.5, 9. Inferno was probably about 8.5. So this is probably hanging back down to 7.5 range. So I think 10 episodes. So I think next week's the midway point. I know one of them is a 3-part episode. But let's see where it goes from here. Still strong, really good. They're doing a great job. I liked a lot of the fun animation styles they did here. The other thing that looked kind of off is at the beginning where it showed them eating close-ups of like Forge eating the chili. I thought that kind of looked a little weird. But other than that, I thought that their stuff looked kind of very reminiscent of the old cartoon. And then the first part brought in did a lot of stuff in the old video game style format. So I did like a lot of the art styles here. So I thought they did a good job on that. But yep, that's episode 4. Till next time, Cachorro out.